We are going to finish up this steel structure with dealing with some roofs over this double height space. Anytime you have a span this large, you can't really use normal beams, which is why we've got trusses. I am going to go to my level 30 because if we look at our elevation, that's where this building ends, and so we're going to build up from there. If I come in to the structure tab, you can see over here there's truss, and if you do the drop down, we got the half flat truss, which is what we're going to use right now. We got a Fernando flat truss, which we're going to use a little later for our third one. And this top chord truss we're not going to use in this particular project. So I'm just going to fill in all of these. I'm going to start from the midpoint of this column and come to the midpoint of this column. And now I'm just going to copy them over. And I'm only going to need 3 roofs, so in my particular layout I have more than enough to make 3 distinct roofs. Alright, let's take a look at it in 3D. Great, so we're covering all that. And from here to here, you could do a beam with an angle if you want. We're not going to do that right now, or you could do another truss coming all the way over. So one of the things, the first one we're going to do kind of a curved beam for all 3 of the styles. And so the first one, we want to line up our curved beams with these verticals in the truss. Now we've each got different scaling, so we're each going to have a different number of vertical. I'm going to count mine so that I know how many I need. And I've got 15. So after I make my first one, I need to use an array to space them out because we want the load of the roof to go from the curved piece straight down this vertical. So I'm going to come to my north elevation, but first I'm going to double check. All right, so I have grids A through E that I'm going to be working on. So I'm going to start over here on the left. I'm going to come into structure again. I'm going to do beam. I'm going to stick with this 310. It's on grid A already. And I am going to do this second one over here, the start end radius arc. So I'm going to come in and snap here. Come straight across. And now I just want to decide what that looks like. If you keep going, you're going to end up with a true barrel vault. I'm not going to go with a full barrel. So here we go. I've got 1. I want 15 more. I don't know the distance between those verticals. The best way I know how to do this, I'm sure there are other ways, is to use the array function. If you've never used it before, it's just to the right of the mirror draw axis here. So I can click array and you can see I've got options. I can move it to the last position or the second position. If I knew the distance, I would use second. I don't know the distance. I just know I need 15 of them. And I want to avoid them becoming grouped because I'm going to copy one of them later anyway. So I'm going to uncheck group and associate. And now you can see this is still highlighted as if we're going to copy it. So I'm just going to click, I'm going to come away from any geometry, I'm going to click on grid A, that's where we're starting our array, and I'm going to come vertical, making sure I see that dashed line, come all the way to grid E. Now I've got 15 of these. If I come into my 3D, and we are lined up nicely with all of our vertical members. If for some reason you miscounted, that's not a problem. I come in, well, no, after the fact. If I had made this a group, I could have changed that number. I knew I had 15, so I'm not worried about it. If you can always just click undo once you've recounted. All right, so I have these three. I want a roof on top. We're going to use that same 5-inch sandwich that we have over here on the awnings. I'm going to come into Architecture tab. So we can't do footprint because we can't determine a slope on this. And if we try and do massing, we're going to run into a similar problem where if it sees two of the same thing, it's going to interpret that as a center point and an edge of a circle, and it's going to make this giant circular mass going in the wrong direction. So we want to go with by extrusion. We'll keep this as it is. Now when you're doing roof by extrusion, it builds, typically your roof goes up from whatever level. When you're doing by extrusion, it actually goes down. So I'm going to switch to pick line, and I know that this is a 5-inch thick roof, so I'm going to give ourselves a 5-inch offset, and I'm going to put it above our curved pieces. Click OK. Let's check the 3D, or even really this view. Now because it's based on the grid, we're going to have to stretch this out to actually cover. And again, it's just going to the end of the building. We need to bring that back to only cover this area. There we go. All right, great. So that is roof style number 1. An array that matches the number of verticals you have with the sandwich on top. I'm going to come back here to level 39. I'm going to make this wireframe so I can see through. I'm going to take 3 of these. I'm going to take the middle one and the 2 end ones, and I'm just going to copy them. Check my 3D. Great. All right, so we'll see if this works. We might get a glitch with our beam system, but the goal this time, since we don't have quite as many of them, is to run beams that go lengthwise. So I'm going to come back into level 30. I'm going to go to Structure, Beam Systems, and this is actually cooperating right now. That's okay. Again, we've got non-planar checked, so it should, if we come to 3D, yeah, it's following our curves. Just, I don't know why it does this sometimes. Click OK, it's going to ask you to keep going. Just click Quit Sketching. All right, so they're following. It's cutting through, which is not ideal, but it's fine for this. In a perfect world, they would be on either half. You could click one, unpin it, drag the shape handle, and then you could copy. But I'm not going to take the time to do all that. I want to keep the video as short as possible. Again, you could highlight this, copy it over. I'm going to not show that though. So that's 2 of our 3. Our third one, we're going to try something that's a little different. So instead of having the same curve all the way, we're going to change it. So it'll be taller on one end, shorter on another. So that is exactly what massing in place is for. So I'm going to come back to my north. And I'm going to say massing in sight, in place mass. Now again, we're dealing with grid A and grid E. I still want to use the start end radius arc. It defaulted back to grid A for me. I'm going to come to this midpoint. Come over here. And now I'm just going to find somewhere in here. I'm going to switch from grid A to grid E. Still make sure I'm on the start end radius arc. Now I'm going to do something a little different. So I've got two different sizes. I need to highlight them both, and then I can create a solid form. And now, since they're at different heights, Revit doesn't try and make some giant circle. It understands the path we're trying to follow. So I can say finish mass. You can close out this warning message. And now we'll see if this lets us work with this particular version. So I'm going to come back here to massing in sight. And I want to put a roof on top of this. So I'm going to go to roof by face. I'm going to pick my sandwich panel if it's not already highlighted. I'll click on the mass itself, and then I'll click create roof. Great. That worked. If for some reason that doesn't work, it's typically one of two things. It doesn't like the difference in the arcs, so you would have to redraw those, especially if you're trying to keep consistent with this 5-inch, or the roof you're trying to put on is too thick. So let me undo real quick and I'll show you what happens. I'm going to say, let's go with this massive roof here. I'm going to click on here and say create roof. Can't make roof. So when you see that error message, you either have to change the thickness of your roof, or you have to change the pitch that it's going with. Since we already know this works with the sandwich, I'm going to go back to sandwich, click on it, make the roof. Now you can see we get this weird graphic thing going on because we have the mass and the roof in the same place. I'm just going to right drag, use my filter. I don't need the mass anymore, so I can just delete it. Alright, those are in place. It's a little weird how far down this is coming. So I might want to go ahead and do that 5-inch offset again. Alright. So now we need to do something similar to this. We need 15 of these. But if I try and do this with regular beams, I'll come to level 30. I'll come into structure. I'll do one that's easy enough to see. Looks like we're hiding back here. Yeah. There we go. So if I click this, I can do individual edges, but I can't make it a curve. There's no attach to top base option. And because this changes as we go along, I would have to hand draw each one if I tried to do it like this. So instead, we're going to take advantage of that wonderful flat truss that Fernando created. I'm going to go to level 15 so it's easier to see. And I'm going to come into truss. I'm going to switch to Fernando's flat truss. And this first one I am going to do up here. None of them are visible, that's fine. So how this works, this is what we've created. I'm going to highlight this first one. Now you can see we've got attached top bottom come up. If I say attach top bottom, I click on here, now it matches this. Unfortunately, it's also created this extra beam down here because create bottom chord is on. So I'm going to uncheck that, click apply, and now we just have the single beam up here. So I'm going to try this with array and see if it cooperates. If not, we can always just use copy. So I've got the Fernando flat truss again. And come back to level 39. I'm going to say array. I'm going to make sure they're not grouped. I'm going to do 15. And I'm going to start from A and end at E. Great. They've all showed up. And now the process is the same. I'm going to highlight the one. I'm going to say attach. And then I'm going to click the roof. We're going to do this over and over until we have each of them. Now, I'm not going to do this for all of them, but you can see they're all attaching exactly at the right angle for the roof where they are. The one that's not likely going to work is the very last one. So I'm going to try this. I'm highlighting the very last one. I'm going to say attach. I'm going to click the roof. And you can see we get this error message here. I'm not 100% sure why it works on this side and not this side. But I'm going to detach it. I'm going to highlight it again. And all I'm going to do is nudge it over a little bit. I'm going to come into my level 30. There it is. It's still highlighted. I'm going to say move. And it doesn't even have to be very far. So I'm going to say I'm moving it from here. I'm going to say unjoin. And now it's slightly off center. I can highlight it again. You can see it's Fernando flat truss. I'm going to do the attach. And now I don't get that error message. So that's the only one that is likely to give you trouble. The rest of these should just work. It's a little tedious doing them one at a time. But when you're done, you'll have all three styles. You'll have your awning that has the miters and coping. You'll have the basement with the wall footings, isolated footings, and that's really it for the first project of the semester.